What do you want your life to look like? How nice would it be if you had freedom? You were free to work when you wanted, where you wanted, that you took the time to design your life to work for you. And for those of you that have never thought about this before, you always thought, okay, I just got to get a job. I got to get a job. We're unpacking a concept called unbossing yourself, because I personally believe this is all mindset. It's all mindset. And you've got 2 strategies to unboss yourself. But before we get to those, I want to go back to the story, because you had this wake up call. You're like, whatever these dudes are doing to make money online, I'm figuring this out.
Yeah.
Because I am not free if I work for somebody else. And I really see and have a taste of what they have. And now I want to figure it out. And so takeaway number 1, everybody, pay attention to the wake up call. Takeaway number 2, yes, you can sort this stuff out. And takeaway number 3 is, what did you do next?
So that's when I started to think, what could I possibly do? How do I need to unboss myself? How do I need to think in order to step into what I want?
Got it.
So I really did start with my mindset. So this concept of unbossing, really understanding that you could lead yourself and you do not need anybody else to tell you what to do, make the decisions for you, or lead you. So once you start to think, okay, how can I lead myself? I had to take some steps to get me there. The first thing was, again, I talked about, what do I want? And I went on social media and started following a bunch of people that had the kind of businesses that I wanted. Total immersion. I wanted, and you did an episode a while ago that you talked about when you, let's say, got a new car and you started to see that car everywhere.
Yes.
It's the same concept. When I decided I wanted to start my own business, I started to see bosses everywhere doing what I wanted, but I was intentional about it and I cleaned up my social media.
Okay, so takeaway number 1.
Yeah.
You have this wake up call. What do you want your life to look like? Get serious about curating your social media right now so that you are immersed in the world that you want to step into. That is step 1. That is what a leader does. That's what you're going to do. We all have boards of advisors. We all call experts. Like I call Amy on speed dial when I need help with marketing. You're going to do social media, and you're going to use social media in a very intentional way to start to create that community and that mindset around you. What's the second thing you can do to change your mindset and unboss yourself?
Start asking for advice.
Okay.
Find the people who are doing what you want and find out how they did it. And I actually have a great story about this. Okay. So when I was still at Tony Robbins, I knew I wanted to create courses and help people do their marketing and build businesses down the road. I wasn't ready for it yet, but I knew I wanted that kind of business. So I went online and I found a bunch of people doing what I wanted. And there was this one woman who absolutely had the kind of business I wanted. I did not know her at all, but I watched her online and I thought, that's the kind of business I want. So I went to her contact page on her website, wrote her a little email and said, listen, I know you don't offer this, but can I pay you for an hour of your time? I just want to ask you all about how you built your business. I'm new to all of this. I don't even know where to start. Will you share some insight with me if I pay you? And she said, yes.
Wow.
Yep. So you got to ask.
You got to ask. And here's another way you can do it, because you're probably sitting there. Notice you have a employee mindset.
Yes.
We're like, but I don't have any money to pay. Amy's got money because she works for Tony Robbins.
No. That is not the mindset. You are not a loser. You're a winner. All of these people that you follow have likely done a podcast interview or a YouTube video, or they've written a blog post.
Yes.
And all the advice is in there. And another way that you can get people to respond to you is you can present them with some challenge that you're facing and say, could you give me, like, I need some help making a decision. I'm facing this challenge. Here are 2 or 3 things that I'm thinking about doing. Which would you advise? Because then you've done the work. You've thought like a boss. You haven't come to somebody to solve your problems. So that's another way that even if you're working for somebody else, unbossing yourself is a mentality. Don't expect your boss to solve your problems. It's not their job to solve your problems. It's your job to come up with the solutions to recommend for the problems that you're facing in whatever your role is. And so that's a way that you can take this philosophy into your current job while you figure out what you want to do.
Yes.
So you stuck with this job and you chipped away at the job while you changed social media.
Yes.
And you started asking people for advice. You started chipping away at learning things. What else did you do in order to kind of step by step march toward building something you had no freaking skill or experience to do.
Yes, I had to get unreasonable. And by the word unreasonable, I mean, I had to start thinking in ways that I had never done before. And so like with the call with that woman that said yes, like I was still at my office. I had to crawl under my desk because the walls were thin. I didn't want anyone to hear me at my lunch hour. I'm whispering to her on the phone, like, how did you build your business? What did you do? And she's whispering back to me. And I'm sure she thinks that's weird that we're whispering, but I needed to make it happen. So I had to start putting myself in places that I was way out of my element because I wanted something bigger than my life at the moment.
Now, how do you keep that present? Because I think this is what separates people in life.
Yes.
We all want it. Who doesn't want to make $1 million? Who doesn't want freedom? Who doesn't want to figure out how to make money online and check their balances while they're sitting on the toilet? I mean, who doesn't want to make money while they're sleeping? But what separates those of us who do and anybody who doesn't is literally the action. That's it. That is it. Like if you're willing to go one step further than the person that just quit, you, my friend, have the secret formula. There is no fucking secret formula.
Yes.
You have to stop listening to the bullshit that is stopping you from taking action. I mean, this woman is sitting under her desk. I'm literally at an event I'm not supposed to be at because we wanted something more for ourselves. What did you do to keep that freedom, which is this big ass word? What did you do to keep that front and center other than having your social media feeds reminding you that this is the world you wanted to step into? It's sort of like a kid who decides, okay, I'm going to go to I'm going to go to this college. And they're really into, the first one that popped into mind is Michigan. I'm from Michigan. Everybody loves either Michigan State or Big Blue. And so kids would wear the sweatshirts and they'd look at the school and they'd follow people and they'd buy the swag and they'd been wearing it all over. And so they're like immersing themselves in this world before they're there. How the hell do you do this for yourself?
Yes.
When it's about a side hustle or who you want to become? Because you're talking like recreate your whole damn life. Like stop getting a job and get serious about what you want your life to look like.
So I started to change my identity. I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to be a boss. What do bosses do? They listen to podcasts about building businesses. They buy the books about how to change your mindset, how to start a business, how to get things going. They buy the digital courses. I'd never bought a digital course in my life. I bought my first digital course while I was still at my 9-to-5 job. It was all about how to do video marketing. I had no idea how to make a video.
Can I give everybody a pro tip?
Yes.
A lot of companies, as a perk, give a login to Masterclass and some of these other places. And so you can
use it.
Yeah, there is so much free education. You're hearing Amy go bye. Khan Academy, YouTube, all this stuff is free, everybody. You got to be willing to look for it. If you've gotten laid off, the Harvard Extension School has free resume templates if you're willing to freaking Google it. So, we have to get out of this mode of stuff's being done to you and, damn that job and I'm embarrassed. Bullshit. That job was not a fit. And you want to know why it wasn't a fit? Because you got fired. Because you got laid off. And yes, it sucks. But you get to decide now what it means. Are you going to pivot? And are you going to take this as a wake-up call? Or are you going to sit there and feel sorry for yourself?
It's so true. So yes, get resourceful. You don't have to pay for any of this. There's tons of free resources out there, even more so now than there were when I even left. But I started to, again, total immersion, fuel my mind with the right things. But here's another thing I did. I started a side hustle. And I think this is an important conversation for people right now. If you're afraid of getting fired, laid off, or you're just not making enough money, a lot of people listening, they think they're staying in their 9-to-5 job, but they know they're not getting paid enough. They know they're undervalued. So the best next thing you can do is start your own thing in the mornings, nights, weekends to bring in a little extra money. Let me tell you about a student of mine.
Give me some examples.
So one of my students, her name was Rachel. She was a pharmacist, and she did this job as a pharmacist because her parents wanted her to have that job. It looked good. It sounded good. And here she is as a pharmacist during COVID and hates every minute of it. Like her life was miserable, what she went through. And so on the side, she decided, I'm going to learn how to buy real estate. She didn't have a lot of money, but she said, I'm going to learn how to just buy a little bit of real estate and turn it into an Airbnb and see if I can make a little extra money doing that. So she researched, she started saving, she bought her first piece of real estate, and it did really well. And she told her husband, one day I want this to be my full-time thing. And he laughed at her like, no, you're a pharmacist. You're not going to do that. But she kept at it and she kept at it. She made $300,000 last year when she figured out how to get this real estate and get the money to invest and all of that, quit her pharmacy job and never has looked back.
So is this somebody with a trust fund?
No, not at all. Like this woman was scrappy. Let me tell you another story of someone who didn't have a lot of money. Okay. Because I know some people.
Because most people don't have a lot of money. Like most people are paycheck to paycheck. Most people are like, that sounds great, but I got no money for a course. I'm definitely going to pick up the book 2 weeks notice that you just wrote, Amy, for the step-by-step guide, but I don't have buy real estate. What are you talking about?
Okay. Let me give you a better one. So this one is from my student, Tara, and she was an accountant for 15 years in a very small town. And she's a single mom. And she said, I need a raise. I'm not making enough money. She went to the company and said, I'd like a raise. And they looked at her with blank stares, like, that's not even in your future at all. And she realized, I've got to do something. So she was really good at making wreaths. She made these beautiful wreaths.
Wreaths?
Yes.
Like you mean those round things that we hang on our doors?
Yes.
Okay, so she's really good at wreaths. So I want to go back to something. Remember how Amy said you got to go through the sweet spot exercise. By the way, tons of resources linked all in the show notes on every single platform.
Yes.
But I want you to hear this. This is a person who has been told by people forever that she does a good job making wreaths.
Yes.
I know what you're thinking, everybody. You're thinking, Mel, I have a mortgage to pay. Mel, I have student debt. Mel, I am not starting a fucking business making wreaths because I will not be able to pay my bills doing this. Here's what I want to tell you. You have no clue what you're capable of. But what you're capable of right now is shooting down every single idea. You're putting all your energy into coming up with reasons for why not, why it's stupid, why you can't. What if you put half the amount of energy into why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Why not make wreaths? Why not see where this goes? Why not, instead of flopping down in front of Netflix tonight because my soul is sucked dry from my job search or my job that I go to or worrying about why not invest that same time that I procrastinate at night into creating a little bit of a side hustle, tasting a little bit of freedom, saying yes in a little way. Why not?
Just a starter idea.
That's all she had. That's all she had.
Yes. So she wasn't saying, I'm going to quit my job tomorrow because I'm making wreaths. She just thought, I got to bring in some extra money. I better get scrappy.
Yes.
So she started making these wreaths, selling them on Etsy, and she was doing really well, bringing in like $1,000 a month extra.
That's pretty good.
Right?
That's like take the kids to Disney money.
Exactly.
That's pay the bills money.
So she's like feeling a little bit. That's another thing. You start to feel a little confident when you start to take some action and get some clarity, like this is actually working. So what happened was her friends started seeing her make money on Etsy, and they were making crafts and they weren't making any money on Etsy. And they said, teach us how you're doing that. That's what I want to know. And that's where it started to click for her. Her starter idea was not going to pay the bills. However, she took action, got some clarity, started to listen to what people were saying, and they said, teach us how you're doing that. So she created a little mini course teaching other people how to put their crafts online and make money with Etsy. $100,000 later, this woman never in a million years thought she'd make $100,000 teaching other women how to put their crafts on Etsy.
So how long of a period of time from the idea of, I could, because first it becomes, I want everybody to pay attention because I'm trying to open your eyes to the fact that your whole life can change because of one wake-up moment and the willingness to lean into something that you naturally do well or you're naturally interested in. I'm going to put an example into this in just a minute. But this willingness to lean into what you're naturally good at and other people compliment you on. I've never thought about it this way. Not so that it pays your mortgage, but so that it gives you a taste of freedom And it taps into this power and resourcefulness and moxie that is inside you.
Yes.
Because when you start feeling that, you'll start thinking even bigger. And so, I'm thinking about this because, and I'm going to offer up an example, because it literally could be anything. I think about my daughter, Sawyer, who constantly is complimented for her interior decorating style and skills. No training. And I keep thinking to myself, boy, she could do a whole Instagram strategy of designing on a budget. She could do a whole thing about how you design a killer dorm room for X number of dollars, or how you design your first apartment. I'm thinking about another kid. I have a neighbor whose son, senior year of high school, no joke, made almost $30,000. You want to know how?
How?
I'll tell you how. He saw one video. He Googled how to make money online. One video of this business where you advertise a service of picking up people's stuff, like couches they don't want, and then you list it for sale on Facebook Marketplace and you deliver it to somebody else.
Brilliant.
And
scrappy. I like scrappy ideas.
And so I'm not suggesting you'll make millions. Maybe you will, because maybe you'll turn it into a junk removal business. Maybe you'll turn it into something else, but you are limiting what's possible because you won't even lean into something like the wreath idea or the idea of starting an Instagram account that is about decorating on a budget, because you tell yourself it's not possible. I can't do it. Somebody else has already done it. Do you have another example of somebody who just was either really old or really young that did this?
Yes, I have a great story. One of my favorite students, her name is Anne. And Anne worked in corporate at Gap and Old Navy. She was in her 50s at the time and she got laid off, which tends to be a theme we're hearing a lot. So she's laid off and she thinks, okay, well, I've been in this business for a while. I'm going to dust off my resume, get it back out there. So she did. Months and months and months, couldn't even get an interview. Oh. And I hate to say this, but I think it was her age.
Probably.
Right? People are hiring younger, so they're just looking over her and all of her experience that she had. And so one day her husband said, you've got all of these different crafts up in our attic. You love to do these. Why don't you just play around there for a while, see if it sparks anything? And so she didn't have any other option at the time, so she started to kind of get in there. And she does this one thing really well, surface pattern design.
What the hell is that?
Right. I'm not crafty at all, so I really had to kind of dig in to understand it. Basically, it's this idea of drawing your own doodles and different graphics on, let's say, through a software, and turning those drawings of yours into wallpaper, into wrapping paper, into mugs, into journals. Yes.
Okay.
And so she did this really well. And yet again, people started to say, how are you doing that? That's why when you think of the sweet spot formula, the first thing you do is pay attention to what people think you're good at, because it's just a natural thing. They're interested. And so she did it well. Other people wanted to know how she did it. So she started to teach them how she did it. Now, this woman went from literally not getting anyone that wanted to hire her, not even getting interviews, to doing launches of this new program she created, $100,000 launches over and over again. But I want to point out, she's in her 60s.
Wait, okay.
Yes.
You buried the lead,
yes.
Amy.
She's in her 60s. Didn't know how to run a business, didn't know how to do technology, didn't know how to put up a website, didn't know how to do a webinar. She knew none of it. But what she did know is she wanted a different kind of life, and she got honest with herself. I don't want to be begging for a job. They think I'm too old. Watch me.
Ooh,
and
I love
that's
that.
What I want. Yeah.
Watch me. Watch me do this damn thing. I cannot wait to send this episode to my kids. Can you tell me about someone on the younger side that went from nothing, telling themselves, no skills, too young, I can't do this, missed the boat, there's already too many people doing fitness online or whatever the hell it is that you want to do, too many interior designers, no room for me. Tell me about somebody on the younger end of the scale.
I will. And I want to say, if you're looking around and you think, I want to do this, and you see so many other people doing it, and they're doing it well.
Like podcasts with me.
Yes. The first thought is, there's no room for me. Yes. I can't do that. It's already been being done. First of all, there's over 8 billion people in this world. There's definitely an audience you can reach. But the second thing is if it's being done and it's being done well, that means there's money to be made there, right? It's a validation. Look at it and think, oh, great. Mel's a great example that I can make money doing this. Let me try it as well.
Okay. Did you hear that, everybody?
It's important.
It's really important because somebody else doing this is a validation that there is a business and money. And more importantly, people want this.
Yes.
They want this in their lives. And so I want to also say something. There are 8 billion people, Amy. And oftentimes the expert that my kids like let's just take online exercise classes.
Yes.
I feel demoralized when I'm looking at a 28-year-old's rear end as she's doing like the donkey kicks and the hydrant thing. And I'm like, she hasn't had kids yet. I'm in menopause. I'm feeling like the stomach hanging down. This is not great. I want a different expert.
Yes.
I want what my daughters have in that market, but I want somebody that I feel represents me.
Yes.
And so you have a unique take on things. The 60-year-old woman that you talked about that launched her first online course, do you know how empowering it is to see somebody teach you when you're in your 40s or 50s and they're older than you? Do you know how empowering it is when you see somebody that has your background, your religion, your skin color, your body type, your experience? You are most qualified to help the person you used to be.
Yes.
And you will most inspire the person who sees themselves in you and your story. And so there are people out there, like when I think about the podcast market and I saw there are 5 million podcasts on Spotify, 5 million alone. I'm like, it's already taken. What more, what could I possibly contribute? I know that's what everybody's thinking right now. It's already been done. Bullshit. You want to know why? It hasn't been done by you.
Amen. That's it. It hasn't been done by you. You have lived experiences that nobody else has, and you have stories and insights that you share that nobody else will. And you only need a sliver of the internet to pay attention. That's the wild thing here. You don't need 100,000 customers to make money. A sliver of the internet. You get 10 customers. Let's say this, Mel, when I teach people how to create side hustles, let's say you have a $100 program and just 10 people buy that. You've just made $1,000 that you did not have. 10 people, that's all you need. So when you start to think this is too big, I'm too overwhelmed, I don't know where to start, you start with your starter idea and you just get into action.
You know, I want to give a huge shout out to my kid's guitar instructor, Dave Wade. So Dave Wade, he has made a huge difference in our life. And he, you know, I was always barking about how he should do something more. He's a session musician, classical guitarist, plays on all these major stages, and he started a music school in Boston in the basement of a church, and it's slowly grown. And you know, by just paying attention to that wake-up call inside him, there's something more I could be doing. I could be reaching more kids. He figured out how to create an online course.
Yes.
And he launched it before COVID. So all of a sudden COVID hits, and he's done this thing simply as a side hustle to an existing business, a way to take something you're doing in real life and take that and put it online. And he was positioned for COVID. And now he does nothing but virtual lessons with students all over the world, and in person in Boston. But I mean, it just changed his life. Why? It's not because he's smarter than you. It's not because he has more skills than you. It's because he did one thing you're not doing. He's saying, what if it works out?
Yes.
What if I just take this kernel of an idea and I lean into it? And I don't do it overnight, but I start chipping away at it. Sure, look for a job. Sure, work on your resume. Don't forget the fact that 85% of jobs aren't even listed anywhere, and they're gotten by networking.
Yes.
So make sure you're out there talking to people. There's another free tip. I want to take another question from Louise in the UK.
Hey, Mel, it's Lou from the UK. I have a question for you. I I'm no longer in my corporate career and after 25 years, and I really want to use this time to do something that I'm really passionate about, coaching other people. I've got the qualifications. It's just the confidence that's stopping me. How can I get past the fear of judgment of others to really put myself out there and follow my passion rather than making myself go back to a corporate career that doesn't light me up? Thanks.
Oh, Lou, it's your lucky day, man, because you got Amy Porterfield in the house. So how do you deal with the fear of rejection?
What are people going to think if I'm selling my REITs? What are people going to think if I call myself a coach?
Okay, so first of all, notice in that question she said, I'm qualified. And then she just brushed right over it. That's the thing. And then she said, how do I find the confidence? You don't. It does not start with confidence. You have to tap into courage first. And this is a mindset shift right here.
Okay, stop. You don't tap into confidence, everybody.
No.
You're not going to feel confident is what you're saying.
It's never going to show up in the beginning.
Okay, so you got to tap into courage. So please explain what that means to Lou or anybody listening who's like, okay, I got my idea. I got the wreaths. I got the streaming online. I got the coaching business. Now I'm doubting myself.
Yes, I'm looking for confidence everywhere. Confidence comes from a proven track record of something you want to do. You look and think, oh, I've done this, so I can keep going. You've never done this. She doesn't want to do what she did in her 9-to-5 job. She wants to start something new. That's uncharted territory.
Yes.
There's no confidence in that. So what she needs to do is first say, I'm going to find the courage to do this. Courage is taking the leap of faith, knowing everything I've done in my life, I've literally gotten to this point. I've overcome all of my obstacles. I'm alive. I'm here. She has a proven track record of being resilient, of showing up, doing the work. She said, I have the experience. I'm qualified. So we're going to tap into courage saying, well, then I'm going to create something new based on the fact that my track record is I can figure this out.
You know what I love about this? It's a way to basically just whack self-doubt away. Because what you're saying is, all right, I don't know how to do this. I've never done this before. Not feeling that confident. Imposter syndrome is kind of coming up. I have the courage to try.
Yes.
I have the courage to keep going. I can tap into this thing inside me to say, I know I'm nervous. I know I'm this, but I'm going to fucking do it.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
Exactly. And so that part is so important. We're not going to chase confidence anymore. The other thing is when I left my 9-to-5 job, I got home, my first day on the job, I'm in my kitchen at my kitchen table, kind of typing away and freaked out thinking, what did I do? And I started to make videos and I would make these videos about marketing and funnels and all this stuff and publish them nowhere. And my husband would say, I see you making these videos, but you're doing nothing with them. Why not? And I said, I'm so afraid what my old coworkers are going to think about me doing this. They're going to see these videos where I'm not good on video yet, so I look like a mess. And they're going to think, who is she? She looks like a fool. Who does she think she is? She doesn't know what she's doing. So I didn't move forward in this dream I had because I was afraid of what they were thinking. And here's the truth. One, they're not even paying that close of attention. People are into their own lives. They're doing their own thing. And any opinion they'd have of me making videos is a direct reflection of their opinion if they could do it as well. They didn't leave their job yet. They're not going after it. So they're going to tell me all the reasons why I shouldn't or I am not going to make this work.
Here's two pieces that I would add to that. Okay. Lou, if you wouldn't trade your life with them,
yes.
Why the fuck would you listen to their advice?
Yes.
That's number one. Because people who have not done what you want to do have no clue what it takes to get there. So stop looking in the rearview mirror. You're not heading in that direction. Second thing I want to say, the second that you decide that you're going to pivot your life, your social media is not for your friends.
Yes,
if you could get this concept into your head, your social media is not for your friends. Your social media is for you and your dreams and your self-expression. And it's meant to put something out in the world intentionally so that people who are looking for you and who need you can find you. That is what social media is for. If you want to share photos of your kids with your friends, text them to them. But when you get serious about making a pivot in your life, the inbound of social media is your board of directors. It's your board of advisors. It's the way that you do total immersion, as Amy just said, into who you're becoming. Your outbound, what you post, is meant to be something like a beacon that draws in the kind of people that are interested in this. And when you can get clear, it's not for your fucking ex-coworkers. It's not for your relatives. It's not for your family. It is not for your friends. I think most of my long-term friends do not follow me because I post 3 times a day and it would choke their feed. And, you know, if they want to catch up with me, they'll text me. Right. And by the way, they're not into what I do.
Yes.
They're not into personal development. And so why would they follow me? I'm not putting it out there for anybody else but the people who find value in it. And when you can wrap that around your brain, it'll change your freaking life.
I mean, that's a great example of unbossing. You have the courage to put out content that you know is no longer for your friends to see, your kids or whatever, but I'm going to put stuff out there that's going to attract people that I can serve.
Yeah. You think the CEO of Coca-Cola worries about what their ex-colleagues think about their new marketing campaign?
Amen.
No.
We often say that about Beyonce. Do you think Beyonce or Oprah are sitting there thinking, I don't know if I could do this. What are people going to think about me if I put it out there? They're not thinking that way.
And now she has the world's most Grammys of any recording artist ever to fucking prove that if you just find the courage, forget about confidence. It'll come later. Find the courage to try. Make the damn wreaths.
Yes.
Say you're going to do the online exercise thing. Say you're going to figure this thing out. I wanted to start off by asking you if you could just speak directly to the person who's listening and tell them what they're about to learn and how their life could change if they really apply what you're going to teach them today.
Sure. So I think there are 2 things. The first thing is I think we sail through life generally not really understanding what's shaping how we feel and behave and what's guiding us in the directions that we happen to be moving. So the first thing is I think you're going to understand a number of the things that are guiding you that you don't recognize are there. But the second thing is because you understand what those things are, you're able to act on them. You're able to use them to your benefit. Maybe the ones that are pushing you in the wrong direction, you can kind of stave them off. So I think it's a combination of both of those things.
What made you want to research things like colors and these environmental, I don't know, like things outside of us and within us that shape our experience of life?
Yeah, so, I think like a lot of people, I'm sort of fascinated by this idea that so much of what goes on is hidden from us, that essentially life is kind of like the iceberg where there's a little bit above the surface of the water, but a lot of really interesting stuff is unconscious, it's hidden from us. And so I wanted to try to understand as much of what's going on under the surface of the water. And a lot of it is these things that are shaping us in ways we don't recognize. So a lot of my research has been about trying to uncover those and then figure out what we can do about them.
I love this. All right, so let's dive in. There is so much to learn. So much of your research also focuses on the environment around us and how that can influence all different outcomes. Can you share some of that with us?
Yeah, so it's huge numbers of different factors, but around us all the time there are colors. Sometimes we're in a built environment, like a room, and sometimes we're in a natural environment. And so a lot of my work focuses on how these different cues shape how we think, feel, and behave, and our welfare, our well-being. A lot of the focus for me recently, because I've been very interested in the effect of spending huge amounts of time in front of screens, is what happens when you go as far from screens as possible to natural environments, which we all sort of have the, I think, general sense that that's good for us. It's good to be in a natural environment, but the effects there are among the most profound I've ever seen in any research, that just spending a bit of time near a body of running water, or hearing wind rustle through trees, or spending 12 hours driving to the eclipse, which is what I did, it's a huge amount of energy that you put in perhaps to get to those kind of environments, but they have a huge effect on your welfare, and it's worth doing.
What effect does it have on your welfare?
So one thing about the way we live our lives today in the modern era is that we are constantly sapped. Our attention is sapped. We're asked to pay huge amounts of very focused attention all the time, whether we're looking at screens, whether we're having extended work conversations, whether we're doing work. And so by the end of the day, you're kind of depleted. If you wear one of those watches that tracks your body battery, you see it just kind of goes down and down and down. And that's a good metaphor for the way we live our lives. It sums it up pretty well. The thing about nature is that apart from actually being asleep, being in a natural environment is replenishing. It basically turns that dial upside down, and so your energy starts to climb again. So it gives you back a lot of what is sapped by that very focused attention. Because when you're in a natural environment, your attention is still grabbed by things. You might hear a bird, you might hear the running water, you might look at trees, whatever it might be, looking at the ocean. But that kind of less focused attention is really restorative. And there's actually a whole body of research called attention restoration therapy that focuses on exactly this idea that being in natural environments is one of the best forms of medicine we have.
So let's unpack that.
Yeah.
Because I could feel the person that is listening to us right now literally stop on the treadmill, or hopefully you're outside walking, or you just stopped loading the dishwasher and you're knowing that what Adam is saying is true.
Yeah.
But there were a bunch of things you talked about that I would love for you to dig in further. The first one was this idea of I think you said something about attention therapy.
Attention restoration therapy. Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, it's basically this idea that your attention is constantly being sapped. It's being taken away. And the kind of attention you have in a natural environment, which is not demanding, it's replenishing.
It's true.
It restores you. It brings you back. It gives you something that you don't have. I think the single most profound example of this for me was a study that was done at a hospital on people who were recovering from surgery. And they were randomly assigned to different rooms. And some of the rooms looked out at a natural environment, a beautiful green lawn, some trees. And some of the rooms, just where they happened to be in the building, did not have that view. They were looking out at another part of the building. And they wanted to track how these people recovered from identical surgeries, depending on which room they happened to be assigned to. And they found they needed like half as much pain medication. They spent 3 days fewer in hospital recovering. Just looking out at that natural environment was the best form of medicine there was. So it's true. You know, I run maybe 4 or 5 days a week, and I try to do it outside when I can. And I know on some level it just feels good. But there's a huge amount of science behind that as well.
So what do you recommend for us to put into our lives? Because we've had neuroscientists, medical doctors, sleep experts come on the show and talk about the importance of getting natural light first thing in the morning.
Right.
We've also had someone talk about if you're kind of burnt out and you are having one of those moments where you just feel your energy draining, even looking off at the distance out the window can help you restore your energy. What are some of the takeaways or the science-backed things that people can implement in their lives to tap into this research?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is I ran yesterday in a forest, and it was wonderful. And there was running water. There were all these ingredients, and it was incredibly restorative. But as a runner, my instinct is to just keep going, which is how we live our lives, right? You're doing something and you want to keep going till it ends, till you finish doing it, till you can check it off. And I had to push myself to stop for 5 minutes, to sit on a rock and just let the water go by. And that was by far the most restorative, wonderful part of the day. And I think there's something to that, this idea of purposely stopping yourself. So I would say, whether you're in a big city or whether you're not in a big city, find a little patch of natural environment. And by the way, if you're in an apartment in a big urban environment and you don't have that option, even little trees, little plants that you have in the apartment, the sound of a little fountain that you have with running water, that stands in for that experience too, is just spend, say, 5 minutes a day doing absolutely nothing but drinking in that natural environment, even if it's a tiny one in your apartment. If you can get out, all the better, but it's very important to do that, I think, as a sort of daily practice.
And also, as your research shows, a countermeasure to the fact that modern life is requiring this intense focus that is just sapping your energy. Yeah. You mentioned colors, and there is so much that you have uncovered that is fascinating about how colors influence so much in terms of our mood, our behaviors, our physical strength. Let's unpack that.
Yeah, so some of this is my research, some of it's other people's research. And I got interested in color because I can't see color very well. I'm colorblind.
Oh, you are?
I'm colorblind. So I'm sort of fascinated by color.
How did you figure out that you're colorblind?
It took a while. You know, when I was young, I would get colors right because all the colors in little picture books are so bright and obvious. So that was never a problem. But as I got older, it seemed like I lost the ability to distinguish colors. I think my parents were a bit concerned. They were like, what's going on? There's something going on in Adam's brain. We need to figure this out. So I did a series of tests and they identified that I had certain kinds of colorblindness. And so it made total sense. But it's kind of subtle. So you can't pick it up when kids are very young sometimes. It takes a little while to figure it out. But it made me really interested in color. And in particular, in the question of whether the way I see the world is, whether it's different from how you do. Do we all see the world the same way? And then assuming that there is some uniformity to that, is that exposure to color influencing us in any way that's predictable? And the answer is yes. There are all sorts of interesting effects.
Let me ask a question. So given that you're colorblind,
yes,
and you are researching the impact that color has on our mood, our emotions, even things like physical strength, it also can influence the actions that you take. Is the color influencing all of us the same way, even if you're colorblind and the color appears slightly duller, or, you know, if you're color, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. So there are two ways it could affect you. So one of them is just association. So maybe I see the color yellow and it makes me think of the sun and fire, and I see green and I think of natural environments. So it's just the association. It reminds me of other things that are green or yellow or blue or whatever. The other one is, as you say, maybe it doesn't matter if you can actually see that it's green or yellow. Maybe it's something about the wavelength. It hits your eye, it hits your retina, and your brain is doing something with that information that whether or not you can see that it's yellow or green or red or whatever, you're responding the same way. I think most of it is association for us, that there are certain things that have certain colors and then that reminds us of those things. So a lot of us talk about blues and greens being more soothing, reds and yellows being more activating, which can be good or bad depending on what you're looking for. I think if I didn't know that a color was red and I couldn't see it and it looked washed out to me, it would have less of an effect for me.
Got it.
Yeah.
So what colors affect our moods?
Well, all colors have some effect.
Okay.
They have some effect, not just on mood, but on all sorts of different outcomes for us. There's a really interesting research looking at how the colors that competitors wear in sports affect how they play. So there's some work looking at Olympic athletes in combat sports like judo and wrestling and taekwondo. And in the Olympics, what they did a while ago is they decided that they were going to randomly assign each competitor to either wear blue or red before each bout.
Yeah.
As a way to just be fair. Like, we're going to randomly pick red and blue and you're going to get your color in and you're going to go into the bout. But one of the things that researchers discovered was when we wear red, we feel stronger, we feel more dominant. And when you see someone else wearing red, you perceive them as more dominant. And there are very lower order reasons for this. Like, if you look at animals, the animals with more red are more dominant in general. So if you look at 100 birds from the same species, the ones with more red feathers or a redder face will be the alpha birds. And that's going to be true for apes and other animals as well. So the color red has a really big effect, and it's associated with sort of how well your blood flows through your body and things like that. And it's a sort of signal that someone is strong and dominant. And what you actually find is in these Olympic bouts, when the competitors are evenly matched, if you are assigned to wear red, you win about 2/3 of the time despite being evenly matched.
Really?
So it has a huge effect on these outcomes, yeah.
Wow. So, Dr. Halter, does that mean if I'm going in for like a negotiation for a job, I should be wearing red, or an interview or a date?
Yes, with a caveat.
Okay.
So the yes is, yes, it will do that. It'll make you seem more dominant. It also turns out to make people more attractive to others.
Really?
Which is interesting too. Yeah. So there's research looking at dating profiles where you have the same picture. You just change every 2 months the color of the shirt you're wearing. People get much more attention online when they're wearing, it's the same picture, but when they're wearing red rather than any other color.
Wow.
So there is all sorts of good reason to surround yourself with red. It's true even if you have a border around your picture and it happens to be a red border rather than blue or green or another color. But red also has other meaning too, right? It's not a color that we don't notice. So you're signaling something beyond just I'm dominant and making yourself look more attractive. It's a conscious choice. And so if people are seeing that and drawing other inferences from the fact that you've chosen red, then maybe it's something you don't want to do if it's very unusual in that context, for example. But beyond that, as long as that's not an issue, there is very good reason to wear red.
Wow. And what colors calm us down?
The most calming colors are generally blues and greens. And I think a lot of that is the association we have with nature, which we discussed. So natural environments are very calming. Water, the sky, trees, leaves, things like that. And so I think a lot of that comes from just the sort of calmness you get with the association with those colors.
So one of your international bestsellers, Drunk Tank Pink, very interesting name.
Yeah.
And there's very interesting research about that sort of bubblegum Pepto-Bismol pink color. Can you explain that? Yeah.
So the name is... Drunk Tank Pink is a name that was given to this very bright bubblegummy pink color. It was used for a while inside, they were called drunk tanks, where you put people who are kind of aggressive, often drunk, you're trying to calm them down. And researchers found that if these drunk tanks were painted pink, in their words, you could calm these people down much more quickly. That within 15 minutes, they'd be calm.
And did it work?
There's some evidence that it worked. I think the research is a little bit shaky, but there was some evidence that this pink color did calm people down. It got a huge amount of attention in the 80s. There was a 60 Minutes episode about it.
Wow.
It really got a lot of attention. And so I thought it was just a sort of fascinating emblem of the kinds of effects you might see from cues that you might think would have a smaller effect on us. But by being surrounded by those colors, there are huge effects. In fact, the visiting locker room at the University of Iowa is painted drunk tank pink in an attempt to calm down the opposition when they spend time in that locker room. So it's been used in a lot of different contexts more recently.
Yeah, well, and I think where my mind goes is both to the Miami soccer team.
Right.
But
exactly.
they're a little bit more bright, and also to the beautiful trend of athletes wearing pink for breast cancer awareness, which obviously is signaling something else. But
yes.
I think that's fascinating. If you're put in a bubblegum pink room, that it just sort of dulls your mood a little bit if you're a bit aggressive.
Yeah, regarding Inter Miami, there are people who, when they box, they will only wear pink boxing trunks because they think it'll make their opposition a little bit less strong. And so I don't think that's why Inter Miami is pink and they have that pink uniform, but that's one of the theories.
Wow. So can you talk about mirrors and how you can use them to change your behavior?
Yeah, there's a lot of research looking at what happens when we see a human face. So one of the things that happens when you see a face, particularly eyes, is you feel that you're being watched. And when you're being watched, it changes your behavior in certain predictable ways.
Okay.
So if you think about a store that has a lot of shoplifting, one of the things these stores do if they can't afford constant surveillance is they put up more mirrors because we are less likely to behave badly when we have to look at ourselves doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it basically forces you, not just metaphorically, but to look into your own eyes, literally. And you have to decide, is this the right way to behave? It makes us much more introspective and thoughtful about what we're doing. So there are these really interesting experiments where you say to people, privately, you can toss a coin, and if you get heads, you get a delicious jelly bean, and if you get tails, you have to eat something that's not very nice. And if you let people do that without a mirror, they all report, oh yeah, I got heads. There are a lot of people who report getting heads, more than 50%, which you would expect.
Okay.
So people are kind of fudging the numbers a little bit. When you get them to do that same task in front of a mirror where they're looking at themselves, 50-50. So they become honest again.
Really?
Yeah. So, there are some, I think, interesting implications. One of them that I've always found quite useful is if you, a lot of people might have like a cupboard in their home somewhere, maybe in the pantry where they keep their chocolates and things that they want to eat only occasionally.
Mine's in a drawer.
Right, or a drawer. Yes. And when you open that cupboard or when you go into the pantry, one thing a lot of people do now is they'll put up a little mirror.
What?
So what happens is you're like, I'm reaching for the chocolate. I have to look at myself in my eyes. I have to scrutinize this decision. And sometimes it's fine, but other times maybe I look at myself and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll leave that chocolate sitting there for a little bit longer. So it basically forces you to be a little bit more thoughtful about your decisions.
Well, I could see how that would happen because, if you think about opening up a fridge, if there was a giant mirror in there, I'd be like, oh, you again? Okay, shut the thing. So I might actually have to try this, putting a mirror in the bottom of the drawer.
Yeah, there you go.
Where I have all of our snacks. We call it the snack drawer. So could you use a mirror to kind of cue yourself when it comes to bad habits? Is that like an environmental trigger that can be effective in making you stop and think?
Yeah, I think so. So I think what the mirror does is it makes you think more deeply, and it especially makes you think more deeply about doing the wrong thing, where it's something that's contrary to what you think you should be doing, because you have to do it in your own presence. It's like you're watching yourself. And so it's a very powerful cue in all those cases.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's I can think of a lot of implications for that. Like if you're somebody who's trying to cut down on drinking, having a mirror sitting there when you open up the cabinet where okay, I see you. Not so fast today. I understand there's some interesting research about how simply looking at money can change you.
Yeah. There's sort of interesting evidence that it can do lots of different things. So one thing it seems to do is it makes you a little bit more independent, makes you feel a little bit stronger and reminds you of resources and having more of things. The other thing it can do is, though, it makes you a little bit less helpful. towards other people.
How
Makes you
so?
a little bit less generous.
Really?
Makes you a little bit more independent. Yeah. So there's some research where if you show people money or you show them, dollar bills or things like that, and then you have a task where they have to be helpful, they're going to be a little bit less helpful if they've just seen money than if they haven't. And I think that's because one thing you get from money is you can stand alone a little bit more. You don't need other people quite as much. That's at least the theory. And so it makes you more independent and less communal minded, and it might make you a little bit less generous.
Well, Dr. Alter, maybe that's why I'm such a generous person, because I never have cash in my wallet.
There you go.
So
It's all about the credit cards.
So do you have favorite tweaks based on the research that you either recommend or use in your own life that help cue you to be your best or to make behavior change stick?
Yeah, I've talked about the biggest one. 6 years ago, I left New York City with my wife and 2 kids, and we moved to a town where it was natural and beautiful, and we could go less than a mile in any direction, and we would have either a beach or we would have a forest or we'd have something.
Where is this Shangri-La? You still work in New York?
This Shangri-La's in Connecticut, just outside New York. Yeah,
okay.
So it's beautiful, and it means that on any day I can drive for 10 minutes or even walk for 10 minutes and be somewhere that does all of this restoring. So I think being around nature for me is a huge one. Different people have different things that matter to them. That was very important to me. It drew me back to my childhood, because growing up in first South Africa and then Australia, natural environments, and especially the beach in Australia, was a big part of what I was used to. And I missed that.
Yeah.
And so being near a beach, the sand and the water was really important to me. So I think picking the location that does the best for you most of the time is really important, that it's worth sometimes sacrificing other things for. And that's something that I've always followed.
That makes a lot of sense. I remember this was decades ago, but when I had just graduated from law school and I moved to New York City, I basically spent all of my puny income so I could live walking distance to Central Park.
Yes.
And so that I could also get to the West Side Highway, because just being able in the big city to get to some green space was critical. And, you said that thing about it also has this sort of nostalgia thing of being able to be outside. Anything about your inside environment, like the way that you think about your workspace, or you might think about the kitchen or places where people want to be primed or prompted to be their best?
Yeah, so we mentioned earlier, especially if you're in a big city, it's useful to have something natural inside that environment. It could be hopefully a real plant, but if it's not real, a fake plant, anything that gives you the sense of that greenery and that nature. Maybe even like a little fountain feature, just a little thing that you plug in that maybe has a light and a little bit of running water. Even the sound of running water reminds you of all these things. And I had the same experience in New York. I was always in Central Park or running on the West Side. And so to the extent that you can bring these features into your home, there's a huge amount of benefit to that. I think for me personally, and this varies, but I think the lack of clutter that you create in a place is really an important source of well-being. So for me, trying my best, and this doesn't always happen, but trying to remove clutter from an environment, especially where I'm trying to think, is really important. I think that's a really good way to think about doing your best work in general, that having blankness in front of you and just moving forward and pouring out your ideas is the best way to go without being infringed upon by other things that are in the environment around you.
Why does lots of stuff around the environment where you're trying to work or focus impact your ability to do your best thinking?
Well, every single thing, even if it's in a small way, is distracting. Everything draws you out of the here and now, some things more than others. A smartphone, massively distracting for all sorts of reasons that are obvious. Even other objects, like if you have a memento that's in view, that's really nice. A picture of a loved one, that's really nice. But of course, if you stare at it, it's going to take you out of the here and now. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have photos of loved ones on your desk, but you should at least recognize that if there are 1,000 different nice mementos around you, the clutter of that, while it's lovely and it brings back good memories, that's probably not the time and place to do it. So having clarity in front of you as you work, I think, is a really important driver of good ideas and creativity in general.
I'm sitting here thinking about my workspace at my home, and it is knick-knack-attack, like everywhere, like little stuff that I really love and means a lot to me. And I can tell you, this is probably an indication of just how distracted I am. Because I could look at my computer and I've got like 4 little mason jars with all like the pens in one and Sharpies in another and pencils. And then I got a photo of my mom and my grandmother and then I've got a little compass my parents sent me. And then I've got a mug that Chris gave me. And then I mean, it's like a little zoo of objects.
If it makes you feel great though. So
I don't know that it does.
Okay,
I just feel like, holy cow, even though I'm not staring at all this stuff, you're saying that subconsciously your mind is still pulling it in to some extent.
To some extent. It's processing things around you constantly.
Okay.
And so to the extent there are things around you all the time, you might ignore them consciously.
Right.
But they're always there. The clutter is always there. And on some level, even if it's on a small level, each little thing is pulling you away in some small sense. And that's the opposite of what you need, especially in the world that we live in now where everything is so distracting. We're actually getting 10 minutes of good, hard quality work is vanishingly impossible.
That's it? 10 minutes?
I mean, it's very, very hard for a lot of people to work. If you track them across the day to get 10, 15, 20-minute bursts of good, hard work, it's tough for a lot of us, especially if your phone is nearby, if your computer's dinging you with emails and things like that. It's really hard to do the same task for 20 minutes in a row.
How you can make some amazing things happen in the next 6 months, that by October, when you look up, you will see things that you've done that make you so proud. And I've been asking you over and over this one question that's going to determine what happens in your life over the next 6 months. What do you want to make happen? Imagine that it's October. And I want you to think about your career and think about money or think about school and allow yourself to drift to October and look up. What have you done that you're proud of? For me, when I think about where I am in October, holy smokes, I am going to publish my next book, The Let Them Theory. Yep, I'm writing a book about the Let Them Theory, and it's coming out in mid-September, which means 6 months from now, I am going to be in the middle of a massive book launch. And that doesn't happen by accident. I got to plan for success, just like you need to plan for success. So that's going to have to be something I'm journaling about in this workbook. I got to get going on that. That's going to take a lot of work. And if you want more success in your career or in school, it's going to take work. And so let's start today in making that happen. Here's another thing I think about. I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast or not with you guys, but I have this desire to launch a product company in the women's health space. You know, I mentioned that I'm in this super confusing supplement routine for my hormone balance. It's working, but it's so confusing that it has lit this fire inside me that I'm like, I got to do something about this. I got to simplify this. I got to figure out something in this space to help everybody translate this confusing expert advice and all this supplement stuff. Like, I got to do something. And 6 months from now, if I really get quiet and I time travel and I go, what do I want to make happen? Here's what I see. I see that I have done the research on the space, that I've got a business plan sketched out, that I know where the funding is coming from, whether I'm going to fund it or I'm raising money. And I also know who I'm going to recruit to be the CEO of this thing. That's a lot, but that's what I see. And I can wish for it. I can want it, but that doesn't make it happen. If I truly want to make it happen, I got to convert that wanting and wishing into a plan of action. And you know what I'm realizing as I say this is something else, because those two things have come up in my career. This massive book launch for the Let Them Theory, which is coming out in mid-September, and this desire to spin off and launch this incredible company is that, you know how I said I had that goal of saving money? That was part of the goal setting that I did for best year? Here's what I'm realizing. I don't really care about saving money right now because I have too much going on. And the fact is, I have been saving money for years. I mean, like I'm like a squirrel hoarding my nuts. I have been squirreling away money because I'll tell you something. If you've ever faced bankruptcy like I have, if you have ever been in such financial distress that you can't pay for groceries like I have, you get to a point where you never let yourself do that again. And so I have been saving for years. I'm extremely risk averse. I've lost so much money in the past that I am not going to let that happen again. But here's what I realize in this moment as I'm talking to you, is that I don't care about making that a project right now. I don't care about making that happen because I already kind of do that anyway. And just being able to say that this isn't a priority, this is so liberating. Is there something that you created as a goal at the beginning of the year that you're realizing now that it's April, you're like, I actually don't really care about that. I just kind of said that and I cared about it then. But the truth is life has changed, or I realized the work that it's going to take, and I'm being honest with myself. Like, why have something on your list that you have no desire to make happen? So here's another takeaway. Your friend Mel Robbins, I'm giving you permission right now as you go through your workbook, melrobbins.com/make-it-happen. As you go through this workbook, there is a page in here where you can list out the things that were once a priority that are just not a priority anymore. That is a moment of honesty that you need to have with yourself. Clear away the guilt. Seriously, clear it off your to-do list. Take it out of the best year goals and create room for something that you care about, that you actually will make happen. And let me tell you why this matters. It matters because it's so easy to find yourself lulled into this kind of robotic autopilot mode in your life, right? Where one day blends into the next. And, it's basically get up, go to work, come home, make dinner, clean the kitchen, go to bed, get up, go to work, come home, make dinner, clean the kitchen, go to bed. It's just like, what the hell? You've already forgotten what it is that you cared about because you're so exhausted. Next thing you know, you're like, wait, 4 months have gone by, 6, it's October already and I didn't even do anything? Not happening to you. Defining a game worth playing over the next 6 months will create meaning and excitement in your life. Sometimes the only thing that's missing from your life is a project that's worth getting out of bed for. I mean, think about it. When you have a kid that's playing a sport, right? And they're like driving towards the championship and a winning season, you're driving towards something. And the fact that they're playing that big game of having a winning season, that creates excitement and meaning. When you're planning a wedding, when you're looking for a new apartment, when you're training for a marathon, when you're taking a class, it creates excitement and meaning. And don't look at these things that you want to make happen as a chore. That's not what the next 6 months of your life is about. You get to choose. This is an opportunity to infuse the next 6 months of your life with something better, something worth getting out of bed for, something worth not getting lulled into that,
I get up and go to work and I just do the same old shit all the time.
And look, you want to know what's so cool? Is that I've only covered the first few pages of the workbook, for real. As I've asked you to time travel, as I've asked you to consider this question over and over and over again, what do you want to make happen in the next 6 months of your life? Think about these categories, and the workbook is going to take you even deeper. This is such a gift to give to yourself. And look, I could keep going, but here's what I can feel. I can already feel your desire to download the workbook. I can feel your desire to start imagining some kind of project that you can take on and design for yourself, something that is going to make the next 6 months just awesome, something that you want to make happen. And look, it could be something that is kind of simple and crafty, like my photo wall. Do you know how happy I'm going to be that I actually made that happen? And it's going to take a lot more work than you would think. I got to pick the photos. I got to figure out the measurement. I got to figure out the size. Like, it actually will take time. It sounds kind of stupid, but it doesn't matter if it sounds stupid to you. This is something that matters to me, and this is really important. If you want the next 6 months of your life to be awesome, you got to pick something that is personally important to you. That if you were to work on it and see yourself chip away at it, it would give your life a sense of purpose. It would create some momentum. It would really infuse you with this energy and this enthusiasm. That's why this matters. Yes, we're going to talk all about how you translate this project into action. But first, I got to get you to start dreaming a little bit. I got to get you to define what would really help you come alive. And so here's how this is going to work. The second you go to melrobbins.com/makeithappen, you will see a little video from me welcoming you. You will get a copy of the workbook right there. And I've even taken the steps with my amazing team. You can download it. You can print it. We even have a low ink format. This is bright green and really colorful. You can do one in black and white, or we've created an electronic format for you too, all for free. That's all you have to do to be registered for this free workshop. Just go to melrobbins.com/makeithappen. And then what's going to happen is there are 2 in-depth video trainings, and those video trainings will help you translate this into action. I'm going to walk you through all the remaining exercises in the workbook in those videos, and I'm going to teach you a bunch of principles, some that are strategies that business consultants use with some of the top companies in the world. We're going to talk about a principle from physics called the domino effect that will teach you how to take action, how to get started, how to leverage momentum and fight inertia. And for everyone in your life who is graduating right now, this is an incredibly important thing for you to give them, because it will help you define what you want to make happen in the next 6 months. Because think about graduation. Holy cow. You know what happens when graduation hits? Holy smokes. It's like whoo, tidal wave. And it sweeps you right into summer. And the next thing you know, you look up and 6 months is gone. This is also exactly what anyone in your life needs if they've been laid off, or if they're looking for a better job, or they're thinking about applying to graduate school, or they're launching a business. This workshop gives you the structure to define it, and then it will give you the tools and the teaching that you need to translate it to action. The difference between time moving forward without you and you moving forward with it is taking a minute right now to figure out what you want to make happen during that time. Just imagine how different you will feel if you look up and it's October and you aren't thinking about that side hustle, but it's actually up and running and it's making money. You know how proud you're going to be of yourself? Just as proud as I'm going to be when I walk into my kitchen and I sit down for a cup of coffee and I look up at the beautiful photo wall that I'd been thinking about for the last 2 years, and I finally got off my rear end and I stopped thinking about it and I made it happen. That is what's available to you. To stop talking and to start doing. To stop wishing and wanting and to start creating. That's what we're doing here. And all you need to do is go to melrobbins.com/makeithappen and get yourself set up. And I'm going to be there to support you with the 2 video trainings and this free workbook where we are going to help you master going from thought to action. That's how you do it. And I want you to make the next 6 months absolutely amazing, because there's nobody like you. Nobody. And that's why I'm here. Because I'm not going to let all that incredible impact and momentum and energy and ideas and heart and spirit and the difference that you can make for yourself, for your family, for the community, and for the world around you go to waste. So why not take this opportunity to make something incredible happen in the next 6 months? Download the workbook, do the exercises, be honest with yourself, and let's make something amazing happen by October. And in case no one else tells you, I wanted to make sure that I tell you that I love you and I believe in you and I believe in your ability to create a better life. Now go use these free tools, define it, and let me help you make it happen. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed that video, by God, please subscribe, because I don't want you to miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. We've got so much amazing stuff coming. Thank you so much for sending this stuff to your friends and your family. I love you. We create these videos for you, so make sure you subscribe. Mwah.